Welcome and thank you all for standing by. All participants are in a listen-only mode for the duration of today's conference. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would like to now turn the call over to your host, Maria. Thank you. You may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Valdesera. I work in the communications team for data.census.gov, and I will be the host for today's webinar, Navigating the New and Improved Data.census.gov. I'd like to start by saying welcome and thank you for joining us today. By now, most of you know or have seen some of the new features and enhancements released on our data search platform, data.census.gov. In today's webinar, we will be taking a closer look at the new features on data.census.gov, where our presenter will go through a live demonstration of the new navigation, filtering, and mapping features on the site. I'm joined today by my colleague, Tyson Weister, who is a panelist in the WebEx event and will be helping to answer your questions submitted via the chat. If there are any helpful links we can provide you, we will be using the chat feature today to send those out. If you want to send a question by chat, please select the All Panelists option from the drop-down menu so all of our panelists can see your question. And please make sure you do not include personal information along with your question. We will also provide our contact information in case you had any additional questions and wanted to reach out to us directly after we conclude today's webinar. Lastly, the slide deck and recording of today's webinar will be posted on the Census Academy site. We will send that link through the chat, so keep an eye out for that. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today. Now it's my pleasure to hand things off to our presenter, Tyson Weister. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Maria, and thank you all so much for tuning into the webinar today on navigating the new and improved data.census.gov. My name is Tyson Weister, and I work as well on the communications team for the site. What we have planned for today is primarily going to be showing a few tips and tricks on screen, and then really spending the bulk of our time working on the live site through a demonstration of data.census.gov. We'll talk about a few resources for learning more, and of course, pull some questions from the chat and go over those at the end. Specifically, by the end of the webinar today, we hope that you will walk away learning how to get started using data.census.gov, how to use the single search and the advanced search, how to customize your table views, and save your results. So we're primarily going to focus on searching and tables today. One of the most important parts of data.census.gov to know is that there are two ways you can go about searching on the site. So there is a single search bar where you can search keywords, topics, geography, year, table IDs, and codes. And you'll see the single search bar in plain view as soon as you visit the site. So this is a great way for simple searches, as well as leveraging certain types of codes that you may put in. For our first example, we're going to show some tips and tricks on how you can get started with the single search bar, walking through three examples. We're going to look at total population in Wisconsin, the 2020 census data tables for Brown County, Wisconsin, and a geography profile for Green Bay City. So that's what we're going to start with. And then as we work through additional demonstrations today, we're going to show more functionality on data.census.gov and more detailed ways that you can search. So what you'll want to do is open up data.census.gov. You can just type that into the address bar at the top of your URL. We do recommend using Google Chrome. It's going to give you the best speed and performance on the site. And here's where you'll see, of course, the single search bar in the middle of the page. What you'll want to type in are your keywords. So here I'm going to put in a topic and my geography, total population, Wisconsin, and then press enter. From here, this will take you to the all results page. And what you're going to get is, in some cases, a featured statistic right at the top. So we can see just by typing in those words, we really get the answer to our data question that there were over 5 million people in Wisconsin based on the 2020 census. But I want to take a moment here to show some of the new navigation features that are available to you and really how you go about browsing through the site no matter what kind of search that you do. So starting with the All Results page, we know we're clicked into All Results because it's the orange bar under the tab for All. Once you look at the top of the page, it will break out for you 733 tables. Each of those tables has a corresponding map. And then there are also 657 web pages on census.gov that match the search criteria we entered. So as you scroll through the page, you'll just get some of the top table, map, and web page recommendations, along with some View All buttons. On the left-hand side, I want to point out here that there are filters and that the panel is exposed to you at all times. So it's showing us that it's found a filter for population total as a topic and for geography for Wisconsin. And that's based off the text in this single search bar. So what you'll want to pay attention to with your searches is that anything you've entered at the top or on the left are affecting all of the results that you get for your search. From here, I'm going to click on Tables. If you would like to explore the 733 table results, you can click between the different table titles. So here it's by default putting us in the first result for P1 race from the decennial census. When you hover over the other table IDs and table titles, you'll notice your cursor is clickable. And you'll want to make sure that when you're trying to click between the different tables, you're clicking on the table title or ID, and then the right side of your screen will be updated with the data from that table. So this is how you can go about browsing the different results in your list, clicking between the titles, viewing the survey and program above, and scrolling through. At the bottom, you'll notice there are pages to go through the different lists of table results in order to view all 733. By default, you will get 10 tables in the list, but you can increase that to see up to 50 tables at a time. So this is a good option if you have a long list of table results and you want to browse or scan through this list very quickly. And one additional feature that I want to point out is that these panels for filters and results are usable to you when you want and need them, but they're also collapsible if you'd like to dedicate more space on your screen to the table and the data. You can expand and collapse these. So one option for you is to click the arrows at the top, and that will collapse those panels. And then notice that the filters and results buttons are accessible to you at all times. So you can click those buttons to expand them and to collapse them. Want to walk through another search here in the single search bar just to show additional types of words and phrases you can type in. For our second example, I'm going to put in 2020 decennial census in Brown County, Wisconsin. So here we're putting in the year 2020, the program decennial census, and then our geography, Brown County, Wisconsin, and we'll press enter. Once we do that, we can see on the left-hand side when we look at the filters that the site has formally recognized the search criteria and found matching filters for our year, geography, and survey program. And this was a really quick way to get us to the 6 table results that have been released from the 2020 census so far. So you can click between these tables and browse through the different results in order to view the data. You'll see high-level information on total population broken out by race and Hispanic origin, that population information for total and the adult population, as well as one housing level table giving you the total number of housing units. And want to show one last feature of the single search bar and our site, and that's our geography profiles. So I'm going to click the U.S. Census logo in the upper left anytime you want to start fresh and go back to the landing page. This is the best way to do it. And here I'm going to type in a geography. So we want to look at some data for Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm going to type that into the single search bar and press enter. So anytime that you maybe are feeling like you don't know where to start with Census Bureau data, you don't know what we have to offer, or you're overwhelmed by the number of results you're seeing, the geography profile is a great product for you to take a look at. So this is available for cities, towns, townships, counties, states, and the nation. Whenever you search for just one of those geographies and you're on the All Results page, you'll see a map on the right-hand side of your screen. And once you click this map, you'll notice that it says underneath Green Bay City, Wisconsin profile. And that takes you to the geography profile. We'll get a map up at the top of the profile. It'll start populating some of the most popular statistics people come to the Census Bureau for: total population, median income, bachelor's degree or higher, and others that you see. And then once you scroll through, you'll see there are a number of different sections. So this one is for age and sex. It provides median age for the city of Green Bay, which we can see is less than median age for the state of Wisconsin. So you'll get that high-level information on the left and more detailed information on the right in a visual format, so a bar chart, line chart, or map. Just that gives you more detail and it's easy to digest. So this is really a great way that you can scroll through and see a flavor of the different topics that the Census Bureau has to offer. Many of these estimates will come from the American Community Survey, but they also have here in this view data from the decennial census and some of our economic data as well. When you see something on the left that you're interested in, such as health, you can click health and it will jump you to that section of the profile. I want to look here just at some of the different options. There's topics and subtopics, so disability, fertility, and health insurance. So I want to pause just a moment at this health insurance and show another great feature of the profile. So just to take a look, we can see in Green Bay, 9.1% of the population did not have health insurance. That's based on the 2019 American Community Survey one-year estimates. And on the right-hand side of the screen, we can see what this metric looked like over time for the city. What I love about the profile is these are clickable links. So if I want to look at more information for health insurance, we can see the source table says S2701. Once I click that, it takes me to that particular table. And you can see in the column at the top of the table, it says Green Bay City, Wisconsin. So I get directly to this table for the geography that I'm interested in. And I'm just going to take a moment here to really show the depth of information that we have just in this one table for health insurance. The first column here shows total. And we can see the first row says civilian non-institutionalized population. As you scroll to the right, we can see the total population with health insurance, as well as the corresponding percent. Then there's a column for the total number of people uninsured, and the corresponding percent uninsured, 9.1%. This was the same estimate that we just saw in the geography profile, and that it had linked to this source data table. So not only, of course, can you get that same information here, different ways that you can look at insured versus uninsured, as well as total. And then once you scroll down through this table, you can look at the percent without health insurance across different age groups, male versus female, race and Hispanic origin, and many other demographic characteristics. So definitely hope you enjoy the geography profiles for the information they have on their own, as well as how easy it is to dive into more detailed information from the Census Bureau. What we showed so far was how to leverage the single search bar. There is another great way you can go about searching on data.census.gov. It's through the advanced search or filters. So I like to use the single search bar anytime that I want high-level statistics, especially for high-level geographies, or I know a particular table ID or code that I need. It's very direct to get me there. The advanced search filters are helpful for a few reasons. So one, it's a guided approach. When you go to the filters in the advanced search, you'll see words and phrases, and you can click on those to get where you want to be without having to come up with your own words for your search terms. It's also more precise than the single search bar. So when you type something in the single search, we are making our one best guess for what you meant, interpreting that, and giving you the results. So if we're not hitting the mark on what you intended through the single search bar, you can edit the text that you put in the single search, or you can simply use the advanced search as a more precise way to select what you want and need. And the reason for this is when you work through advanced search, you're looking for a predefined checkbox that's going to have a word or phrase with the search criteria you want to select. And then the last benefit of the advanced search is it includes all available search options, including more detailed geographies such as metro, micropolitan statistical areas, census tracts, blocks, block groups, and more detailed codes. And then for how advanced search works, before we get on the live site, just want to point out, in general, what you're going to do is start on the advanced search filters and click through one of these primary categories: codes, geography, survey, topics, or years. You'll see categories that will pique your interest as you're going along. And anytime you see a folder that you click on, that's going to tell you there's more detailed options to choose from once you click that word or phrase. And then eventually you'll get to checkboxes. A checkbox is always the final selection. Once you check the box, that search criteria will be added in the upper left. So let's take a look at how this works. For this example, we're going to look at a few different geographies and how you can search by topic. So for specifically, we'll be looking at the percent without health insurance in Florida, Duval County, Jacksonville City, and zip code tabulation area 32202. Going back to the live site, from the landing page, what you'll want to click is Advanced Search. And even though it has the word advanced for the reasons we went over earlier, definitely beneficial for all types of data users. On the left-hand side is where you see something that says Find a Filter, and it has these categories to choose from. Generally, you want to start out with whatever you think is most important to you. That's often going to be your geography. If you're an advanced data user and you know the 3-digit summary level code for the geography level that you're interested in, there's a tab that says Summary Level, and you'll see all of those geographies are sorted by the 3-digit code. Most users would be using the default view called Geographic Entities. If you don't know that 3-digit level code, that's fine too. What we've done here is pulled out the most commonly used geographies, called them out in these 9 blue boxes at the top of your screen, in hopes that you get to the geographies you want and need in most cases, and don't click inadvertently on some of those detailed geographies that you didn't mean to drill into. However, if you need those more detailed geographies, there's a list of all other geographies here, and this is an alphabetized list, so it's very easy to find the categories that you want and need. For our example, we wanted Florida, Duval County, Jacksonville, and a zip code area. So I'm going to start by clicking the box for state. Then we see a list of all states and a checkbox for Florida. I'll click the word or checkbox for Florida. We'll see it's been marked and it's been added in the upper left as a selected filter. Now there's a couple ways you can navigate backwards through this panel. One way is by clicking the primary category on the left. So once I click the word geography, it takes me back to the main geography page. So this will allow me to select the other 3 geographies I want and need. One was the county, so we'll choose the box that says county. Then we see a list of states, and it's a folder for Florida, so that means when I click Florida, I'll get more detailed options to choose from. In this case, that means a list of all of the counties in Florida. We'll check the box for Duval County, Florida. Make sure it's appearing in the upper left. And then we'll move on to select another geography type. Just want to show you one additional way you can navigate backwards through this panel. It's by clicking the arrow that appears at the top. So each time you click the arrow, it just takes you back one click in the navigation. So I need 2 clicks to get to my final selection. We'll make 2 clicks to get back to the main geography page. Now we'll choose place to get to the city level data. Choose Florida. And then we get a list of all of the places in Florida. You'll want to scroll through here until you get to Jacksonville. And then we'll just be looking for that checkbox as a final selection. So Jacksonville City, Florida. Next, I'll click Geography. And the last thing we want is to find our zip code area. When you're looking for demographic data from the American Community Survey or Decennial Census, those data are provided for generalized representations of zip codes called zip code tabulation area. It's one of the more common geographies, which is why it's in the box here to make sure you get to that one that you need. We'll choose the folder for Florida and then mark the zip code area we need. In this case, it was 32202. All right, so we have our 4 geographies. You can go through this process and select multiple geographies at once. They can be different levels as we've demonstrated here. And then you can add other search criteria. So in this case, I want to add a topic. So we'll click Topics on the left. We see a folder that says Health. And then here we see a few different options. Remember, a checkbox is the final selection. We mark the box for health insurance. And then we can see on the upper left, there are 5 filters for geographies, a topic. Once you're happy with what you've selected, go ahead and click Search in the lower right. And then Tables at the top. So just know that there are multiple pathways for you to get to the data you want and need for health insurance. We showed in the geography profile how you can get to one of these popular data tables for health insurance S2701. You can certainly find it through single search as well as filters. I want to go ahead and take a moment here just to look at the data. So we'll collapse these panels that we don't need. But before I take a deep dive into the table, just want to show one additional feature, and that's a new option to view all 18 products. So on the left, you're going to see a plus sign with a View All Products link if there are more than one product for the table you're clicked into. And then it gives you the different vintages and years that are available or data sets. In this case, for the American Community Survey, it gives us a nice link to choose the 2019 ACS 5-year estimate subject tables. When you choose 5-year, it's going to make sure that you're getting data for as many geographies as possible. Now we'll go ahead and collapse the filter. And we'll talk more about the population thresholds for ACS in just a moment. Right now, what I want to do is look at the data table, and I can see in the column, I see Florida. And as I scroll through the table, we'll see Duval County, Florida, Jacksonville City, Florida, and then the zip code tabulation area that we selected. We were interested in comparing the percent uninsured across these geographies. I'm just going to go ahead and make a few quick edits here. And we're going to walk through this step by step in the next example, so don't pay attention too much to the steps I just did or missing out. Just want to show you how you can use a few clicks to get to the data you want and need that are in this table and make that comparison of the percent of the population without health insurance across our geographies. We see that here in the first row. Okay, going back to the slides here, one of the steps that I did was change the product from ACS 1 year to ACS 5-year, and that was to make sure we were getting data for all of our geographies. Do know that ACS 1-year estimates are only available for certain levels of geography, and that geography has to have 65,000 people or more in order to get the ACS 1-year estimates. So if we had looked at this table for ACS 1-year, we wouldn't be getting data for the zip code area. Anytime that you're running into an issue where you're not seeing data for all of the geographies you selected, or maybe even if you're having trouble selecting the geography, we do recommend changing the product drop-down menu to ACS 5-year. We showed you one way you can do that using the View All Products option on the left. It's also accessible to you by clicking the product drop-down menu at the top of your table. Answers to this question and other common questions are available on ask.census.gov. Right, moving on, I want to show you how you can make the most of your search, customize table, and save results. For this example, we're going to look at percent poverty from table DP03 for all zip code areas in Atlanta, Georgia. So when I say make the most of your search, just want to hit home here that we showed you how to use single search. We showed you how to use filters. You can make the most by combining them. And if something works well for you in single search, you can put part of your search into the single search bar and the remaining part through the filter. One thing that works well is a table ID in the single search bar. Anytime you went through the steps to find a table that has information, you can write down that table ID, and it's a great way to get directly back to that table in the future. So I put DP03, and then I'll click Tables at the top. And I want to select all of the zip code tabulation areas in Atlanta. So that's an example of a geography type that would be accessible to me through the filters. So on the left-hand side, that filter panel, again, is available to you at any time you want and need it. Here I'll click on Geography and use this to select the area that I'm interested in. So for zip code tabulation area, we just showed how you could select a single zip code area. Now I want to show you how you can select some of the more complex collections. So first we'll choose Georgia as our state. And then it starts giving me a list of the individual zip code areas in Georgia, but I wanted them within Atlanta City. So what you'll notice at the top is an option that says within other geographies. You can click that word, phrase, or plus sign and see some of the more complex ways of slicing and dicing geographies. Here we wanted zip code areas within a city or place, so I'll choose place. We'll scroll down and look for Atlanta. Click the folder, Atlanta City, Georgia. And now I get a list of all of the zip code areas fully or partially within the city, as well as an option at the top to select the full list in a single click. So with those couple of steps, we were able to get directly to the table that we needed here. You can see this has zip code area 30032 at the top. It gives me a column for totals as well as the corresponding margin of error. And then the third column for percent and the fourth column for percent margin of error. I'm interested in percent poverty across all of these geographies. So there are options for you anytime you want to customize the table view on data.census.gov. There's a hide button here at the top and other options. I'm going to go ahead and click the hide button and show you how you could just get the columns for percent. What I like to do first after clicking hide, you can obviously uncheck the boxes that you don't want and need, but we probably don't want to do that individually for all the geographies. So anytime you like to do bulk actions, there is a checkbox just to the left of the search. I'm going to click that to hide all of the columns from my table. And then what I'm going to do is type in the search percent. That is the name of the columns that I'm interested in keeping. So once I did that, we'll click the checkbox to the left of percent. And that's going to show all of the columns that contain the word percent in them. And then I'll click hide again at the top. From here, if you want the margin of error, you're more than welcome to keep it. You can also take advantage of the button at the top if you would like to remove that from your view. So with just those few easy steps, we were able to hide columns in bulk. And if we wanted to look at poverty for this particular table, it's near the bottom of the table through the section percentage of families and people whose income is below the poverty level. And then there's a data row called all people. So this would give us the poverty rate as we scroll across for the zip codes in Atlanta. Once you've gone through these steps, you may be interested in saving your results. Want to show a few ways you can do that. One option is by clicking print at the top. When you click the print button, it is going to give you a notification about the limitations of print. If you decide to print anyways, you'll see the print preview. So the print is currently optimized for small tables. It's going to give you just the first page of the print. So it may not be the full length of the table, or it may not contain all of your geographies. It works well for small tables. With one geography, you'll get that table view and the data notes. If that option does not work for you, which in this case, we are working with a much larger table, what you'll want to choose instead is the Excel button. So we're going to walk through that here. Choose Excel and export to Excel. Once you click that in the pop-up, you'll open up the exported file on the left. And here there's some information for you in the file output. The first tab says information. It just contains the geographies you selected, the data notes, the source, the year. And then what you most likely are most interested in is the second tab that says data. So once you click the second data tab, you're going to get output that looks very similar to what you see on screen. This is going to include all of the customizations you made to data.census.gov. Notice we're only seeing columns for percent because we hid the other columns. Our geographies are in the columns just like they were on the table, and all of the labels are on the left-hand side here with all of that nice formatting and indentation. So this is a great file format anytime you want to view the data later on. This is also optimized for printing. Moving on, another way you can save the results is to grab the URL from the address bar, and then once you open a new tab and visit it later or share it with a colleague, it will take you back to the same table and geography selection. And finally here, just want to point out the download functionality. So anytime you want to view the data, make sure to use the Excel output. If you want to work with the data, the download is going to be a great file format for you. So by clicking that download button at the top, you'll see a pop-up window that shows the different vintages you can select. By default, it's going to choose the 2019 because that's what we're clicked into. I'm just going to go ahead and click the download button in the lower right. You'll let the progress bar load up to 100% and choose download now. And then in the lower left, because you'll be using Google Chrome, you'll see a zip file to open up. And what you want to choose from the zip file is the file that has data in the naming convention. So data with overlays, we'll double click that one. And what we're going to see here is something that is machine readable. So it's really great if you want to sort, map, or manipulate the information in some way. Notice that everything is in alphanumeric order. So it starts with the variable DP03 _0001E. This was the very first estimate that was available in the data table. And then it just gives you the margin of error that ends in M, the percent ending in PE, and so on. And as you work your way through this table, you'll start seeing data for all of the other rows in the data table. In some cases, do keep in mind that this is ordered alphanumerically, so the name variable, again, that's N for name, may be near the end of this data result. So what we're seeing here, just to see it another way that we scrolled over to the geography, is rather than seeing the geographies in the columns, they each have their own row in this file format. It just makes it nice if you want to sort it. All right, moving on, I just want to mention one quick thing. We talked about searching by table ID. It's very direct to get back to where you want to go. If you're looking for data from the decennial census, do keep in mind the product drop-down menu at the top. So the decennial census uses the same set of table IDs across different data products, and sometimes that means different table layouts. So you're more than welcome to search by table ID for decennial census, but just be mindful of what's showing in the product drop-down menu so that you're getting back to the same table format and layout that you mean to. Before we start transitioning to questions, I want to show one final example showing how to look at economic data and also some more table customization options that are available for different types of table layouts, such as economic data tables. For this example, we'll look at a sorted list of the number of rental car companies across all counties in California. So going back to data.census.gov, we are going to use the filters for this. So I'll click Advanced Search. When you're looking for data for a particular category of business, we have codes to help you get to that information. So we'll click here on Codes and then choose Industry Codes NAICS. So even if you don't know that the NAICS code for rental cars is 532111, the nice thing about the filters is you can look at these words and phrases and browse through them without even knowing. So here in this example, I see 5.3 says real estate and rental and leasing. Then I see 5.3.2 rental and leasing services. Here I'll click 5.3.2.1 automotive equipment rental and leasing. 5.3.2.1.1 passenger car rental and leasing. And then to narrow it down just to rental, we'll choose 5.3.2.1.1 passenger car rental. And of course, you're always looking for a checkbox as a final selection. So we'll make sure that we not only click the folder, but also the checkbox 5.3.2.1.1.1. From here, we can add our geography. We'll click Geography, choose County, California, and all counties within California. We'll click Search in the lower right, and Tables at the top. And I'm going to browse through this very first result from County Business Patterns. So I don't need these two panels anymore. We'll hide those. When you're looking at data from our economic surveys and programs, you'll notice that rather than the geographies being in the columns, they are in the rows here. So we get data for the different counties, and we can scroll across and see that there's more than one row for the same county. Once we get towards the end, we can start seeing data for the number of rental car companies, their annual payroll, first quarter payroll, and number of employees. So I just want to show you a few ways that you can customize this table. One is, notice as you scroll right and left, the county goes out of view. Anytime there is a column in these tables that you want to keep in view, you can hover over that column. Then hover over Pin Column and choose whether you want it to be pinned to the left or right. Now that I chose Pin Left and scroll, we can see the county names are visible at all times. We mentioned more than one data row for the same county. The reason for that is because this particular table provides data broken out by the number of employees that the establishment has. In some cases, you may want that level of detail, but in other cases, you maybe just want to simplify and see the total number across all counties. You can filter these columns. Click the 3 horizontal bars when you're hovering over the column, and then choose the filter icon. Anytime you're working with a categorical variable, you'll see checkboxes that you can select and deselect. So I'm just going to click Select All, click it again, and then what you want to do is just make sure the checkbox is only selected for the data row categories you want to keep, and then make sure to click the Apply button in the lower right. Once we've done that, we can see we've narrowed the total number of rows for this data table. So there are 35 counties in California that we're seeing data for. You can also use a variable value to sort and limit the data rows for the table. So when you are looking at numerical values and you hover over the data row and choose the filter icon, rather than seeing checkboxes, it's going to ask you to choose the way that you want to filter this data numerically. So you'll see a drop-down menu that says equals, less than, greater than, or equals. If, for example, we wanted to look at just the counties that have 15 or more rental car companies, we could choose greater than or equals, type the value 15, and then just click outside of the box. And notice as soon as we did that, we dropped from 35 counties showing data to 17 data rows or counties. So these are the 17 counties that have 15 or more rental car companies with employees across California. And then if you want to sort this information, you can also click the column headers for number of establishments. And that's going to sort the data in ascending or descending order. So here to get this sorted list, we can see, for an example, Los Angeles County has 389 rental car companies, and you can scroll through this list and see what it looks like across your other geographies. Everything that we do on data.census.gov is driven by the feedback that we get, and that's including the recent navigation improvements that we showcased throughout today's demonstration. We would hope that you provide your feedback as well on how we can make the site work better for you. There is a feedback link in the upper right. Once you click feedback, it will give you the email address for census.data@census.gov. Please email us your comments on how we can make the site work better, as well as your data questions. You can also stay alerted on the latest updates that we provide for data.census.gov by subscribing to our email newsletter. Simply visit the link in the upper left, choose data.census.gov updates, and we'll send you our newsletter. It will have the system enhancements, data releases, and latest educational opportunities to help you make the most of data.census.gov. In keeping with that, one of our latest educational opportunities that are highly popular are data.census.gov workshops. So if you'd like to take a deep dive into the site, that would allow you time for hands-on exercises on your own through a guided approach with plenty of time for questions and assistance from Census Bureau staff. We would highly encourage you to sign up for one of these workshops. They are 3 hours long in order to give you the time that you need to really explore the site. These workshops are optimized in size, so you'll see 50 registrants available per workshop, but we do have over 40 different workshops scheduled to help make sure that we're meeting the demand. So definitely visit the link at the bottom for more information on these workshops. And with that, we'll go ahead and turn it back over to Maria.
Thank you, Tyson. So I'd like to invite you all to take a moment to share your thoughts about today's webinar through an evaluation survey. You should already know that your feedback is absolutely invaluable to us. It helps us design future training sessions and lets us know how we can improve our webinars. So that link should be in the chat. And if you have questions remaining after our session concludes, please feel free to reach out to one of the email inboxes that are listed in the chat and on the screen. If you are a member of the public and have questions related to data.census.gov, please reach out to the Center for Enterprise Dissemination. That email address is at census.data@census.gov. And members of the media may contact the Public Information Office at pio@census.gov. So I do have a few questions that I did pull from the chat that I think might can be answered by Tyson and might be helpful to the group at large. So Tyson, I know that you used to work for the American Community Survey. One of the questions was, how often is it conducted and what topics does it cover? If you want to just jump into that a little bit.
Great, yeah, so thank you for the question. The American Community Survey is conducted on an ongoing basis. So they collect information from a sample of households every month. And then every year they provide data in the form of one-year estimates based on data collected over a 12-month period and 5-year estimates based on data collected over a 60-month period. Those data, if you're interested in the topics, it covers totals, demographics, as well as characteristics of America's people in housing. And what I recommend in order to explore the topics that are available, if you type DP0 or select the filter for American Community Survey data profiles, this will give you the high-level topics and most popular statistics from the American Community Survey. So I love the data profiles because it gives you access to all of those topics in just 4 tables. And what you'll do is just look through these tables on data.census.gov, and you can see the different topics are in all capital letters. So employment status, commuting to work, occupation, industry, class of worker. If you're looking for what everything the American Community Survey has to offer, these data profiles are a great starting point for you.
Great, thank you, Tyson. So there are a few other questions that I wanted to highlight. These seem to just be logistical questions about the site. So one of the questions that came in during one of your examples was, can you hide selected rows or only columns in data.census.gov when you're looking at a table?
Yeah, great. Thanks for that question. So in our last example with economic data tables, we showed how to hover over those 3 horizontal bars and click the filter icons, and we showed 2 different ways that you can filter. Those were ways that you can remove data rows of the table that you're not interested in seeing, but those are options available only to certain types of table layouts. For the other tables, for instance, from the American Community Survey, when I was showing the topics the data profiles have to offer just now, the only option available to you is if you see a little arrow to the left of the word or phrase. Those are the different sections or subsections of the tables and in level of detail that you can choose to collapse. So you can't hide the rows in these types of American Community Survey data tables, but you can collapse certain amount of detail in some situations if you're not interested in seeing all of it.
Great, thank you, Tyson. And on that subject, I know that we were just discussing economic data. One of the questions that came in was, if you wanted to know which counties have the most companies, can you sort the table in descending order? Is that something that you can do on data.census.gov?
Yes, we can definitely do that on data.census.gov. That was one of the tips that I showed towards the very end of the demonstration where you click the data row. I'm just going to go ahead and pull up really briefly here a county business patterns table. I'm not going to have it laid out exactly, but anytime you are working in these economic data tables and you hover over the column and click it, and once you click it, you'll see the arrow, which is indicated whether you're sorting it in ascending, descending order, or no sort by that column, depending on the direction of the arrow.
Great. Thank you so much, Tyson. I think that's all that I wanted to pull from the chat. Like I said, if you guys have any other further questions that are more in-depth, we are happy to answer them via email at census.data@census.gov. And thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed our presentation.
That concludes today's webinar. Thank you for participating. You may disconnect at this time.